The unofficial history of the Ford Bronco. The Ford Bronco is a multi-purpose vehicle, hyphenated MPV, predating the term SUV. Manufactured and marketed by Ford from 1966 to 1996, over 5 generations. The Ford Bronco was introduced in 1966 as a competitor to the small four-wheel drive compact SUV that included the Jeep CJ5 and International Harvester Scout, and it was built on its own platform. A major redesign in 1978 moved the Bronco to a larger size, including a shortened Ford F-Series truck chassis to compete with both the similarity adapted by the Chevy K5 Blazer, as well as the Dodge Ram Charger. Most Broncos are equipped with a spare tire swing-away carrier found on the outside of the rear end door. From 1966 to 1996, the Bronco was produced at Ford's Michigan truck plant in Wayne, Michigan. 1966 through 1977, the original Bronco was an ORV, an off-road vehicle, intended to compete primarily with the Jeep CJ model and the International Harvester Scout. The Bronco's small size, riding on 92-inch wheelbase, made it maneuverable for some users, but impractical for a tow vehicle. The Bronco was Ford's first compact SUV. The design behind the Bronco began with Ford's project manager, Donald N. Fry, who also conceived the Ford Mustang, and summarily, Lee Iacocca pushed the idea through into production. In many ways, the Bronco was a more original concept than the Mustang. Whereas the Mustang was based upon the Ford Falcon, the Bronco had a frame, suspension, and body that were not shared with any other vehicle. The Bronco was designed under engineer Paul G. Axlab. Although the axles and brakes were used from the Ford F-100 four-wheel drive pickup truck, the front access wheel was located by the radius arms from the frame near the rear of the transmission forward to the axle, and a lateral track bar allowing the use of coil spring, long wheel travel, and an anti-drive geometry, which was useful in snow plowing. The rear suspension was more conventional, with leaf springs in a typical Hotchkiss design. A shift-on-the-fly Dana transfer case and locking hubs were standard, and heavy-duty suspension was an option. The initial engine was the Ford 170 cubic inch straight 6, modified with solid valve lifters, a 6 US quart oil pan, heavy-duty fuel pump, oil bath air cleaner, and a carburetor with a float bowl compensated against tilting. Styling was subordinate to simplify economy so that all glass was flat. Bumpers were straight. The frame was a simple box section ladder, and the basic left and right door skins were identical except for mounting holes. The early Bronco was offered in a wagon, pickup, and a less popular Roadster configuration. The Roadster configuration was dropped from the sports package, which later became a model line. The base price was $2,194, but the long option list included front bucket seats, a rear bench seat, a tachometer, and a CB radio, as well as functional items such as a tow bar, an auxiliary gas tank, a power takeoff, a snow plow, a winch, and a post-hole digger. Aftermarket accessories included camper, overdrive units, and the usual array of tires, wheels, chassis, and engine parts for increased performance. The Bronco sold well in its first year, 23,776 units produced, and then remained in second place after the CJ5 until the advent of the full-size Chevrolet Blazer in 1969. Lacking a dedicated small SUV platform, the Blazer based their existing full-size pickup, which was a larger and more powerful vehicle, offering greater luxury, comfort, and space. The longer option list included automatic transmission and power steering, and thus had a broader appeal. Ford countered by enlarging the optional V8 engine from a 289 and 200 horsepower to a 302 and 205 horsepower. But this still couldn't match the Blazer's optional 350 cubic inch 5.7 liter and 255 horsepower. In 1973, the 170 was replaced by a 200 cubic inch 3.3 liter straight six. Power steering and automatic transmissions were made optional, and the sales spiked to 26,300. By then, however, the Blazer sales were double those of the Bronco, and the International Harvester had seen the light and come out with the Scout II. That was more in the Blazer class. By 1974, the larger and more comfortable vehicles, such as a Jeep Cherokee, made more sense for the average driver than the more rustically oriented Bronco. The low sales of the Bronco, 230,800 over 12 years, did not allow for a large budget for upgrades, and it remained basically unchanged until the advent of a larger, more Blazer-like second-generation Bronco in 1978. Production of the original model fell 14,546 units in its last year, 1977. 1978 to 1979. The redesign of the Bronco in October 1977 was based on the shortened full-size F100 pickup, with which it shared many chassis, drive chains, and body components. The entire front clip is indistinguishable from the Ford full-size trucks for these years. It had a removable top and forward-looking rear bench seats, similar to the competing Blazer. For 1978, Broncos were equipped with round headlights with the exception of the Ranger XLT trim model for 1979. All Broncos came standard with square, sealed beam headlights. Ford stated the redesign in 1972, codenamed Project Shorthorn, but introduced, was delayed by concerns over the mid-1970s fuel crisis. The base engine was a 351 5.75 liter with an optional 400 cubic inch 6.6 liter. A Ford 9-inch rear axle and a Dana 44 front axle were standard, with leaf springs, rear suspension, and coil sprung. The 1978 and 1979 Broncos featured an option for either full-time four-wheel drive utilizing the new Process 203 drivetrain transfer case, or more commonly a part-time four-wheel drive with a new Process 205 gear-driven transfer case. The 1978 and 1979 Bronco also merged the rear glass hatch and tailgate of its predecessor into a single unit that allowed the rear glass panels to react completely into the tailgate by use of an electronic motor by a key-operated switch on the tailgate's outside dash-mounted control switch. This did cause problems for some customers, as the weight of the glass panel often overheated the motor, sometimes subjecting it to failure. Customers also complained that the retractable glass panel allowed water to get inside and caused the tailgate to rust prematurely from the bottom up. Nonetheless, this design prevailed until the Bronco's end in 1996. 1979 models saw the addition of the catalytic converter and other various emission control equipment. 1980 to 1986. The Bronco received a major redesign in 1979 for the 1980 model year, coinciding with the F-Series. The new Bronco was shorter and had cosmetic changes along the powertrain, suspension, and other odds and ends. Most notably, the live front axle was replaced by a Dana 44 twin traction beam set up in the front end for an independent front suspension. The TTB is a hybrid of a true independent front suspension and a solid front axle, with a solid axle that pivots around the differential and uses coil springs instead of leaf springs. The TTB system offered a higher degree of control and comfort, both on and off the road, but sacrificed wheel travel, and is notorious for being difficult to keep aligned when larger than stock tires are used. In 1983, the Ford Bronco 2 was introduced, a revival of the first generation Bronco that offered four-wheel drive as an option, but in a smaller platform and better fuel economy. With the smaller Bronco and fuel economy in mind, Ford offered a 300 cubic inch 4.9 liter straight six as the base engine. Through this engine came with more torque than the 302 in 4.95 liter and V8 comparable to a 351 cubic inch 5.75 liter V8 until the high output model. It was limited by a 1 VVL carburetor and restricted single-out exhaust manifolds. Electronic emission equipment added in 1983, the 1984 model year, further reduced the power in the inline six. Ford used up the remaining stock of 351M engines before turning over to the 351W in mid-model year 1982. A high-output version of the 351W became an option in 1983 on 1984 models and continued well into the 1987 model year until the introduction of fuel injection. Output was 210 horsepower at 400 RPMs versus the standard 2 BBL 351W, which made 156 horsepower at 400 RPM. The 302 was the first engine to receive electronic fuel injection, starting in the 1985 model year, as well as the 4-speed automatic overdrive transmission. The Eddie Bauer trim package was stated in 1984 as well, from 1979 to 84. Some Broncos had sliding top-door windows. Cosmetically, Ford returned to the use of their blue oval logo on the front of the slightly redesigned grille. Cosmetically, Ford returned to the use of the blue oval logo on the front of the slightly redesigned grille and removed the Ford letters from the hood in 1982. Power low-mounting swing-lock motors were first offered in 1980 on the 1981 models. Classic square mirrors and the optional power low-mounted swing-lock mirrors were discontinued in 1986. 1987 to 1991. In 1986, the body and drivetrain of the full-size Bronco changed as it was still based on the F-Series. The new Aero body style reflected a larger design of many Ford vehicles for the model year. By 1988, all Broncos were being sold with electronic fuel injection, first introduced in 1984 with the 302. In 1990, the 1991 model year, a 25th silver anniversary edition was sold featuring special badges, current red paint and a gray red leather interior. A night edition that was similar to the F-Series was also available from 1990 through 92, also beginning in 1987. To their discontinuation in 1996, all Broncos were produced in Venezuela only and shipped to the United States as imports. The 5-speed M5OD R2 transmission was added as an option for the 300 cubic inch 4.9 liter and 302 4.95 liter powered Broncos for 1997. In 1998 through 99, the 351 Windsor trucks received a C6 transmission. In 1989, the 1990 model year, the electronically controlled E40D automatic transmission came standard on the 351W and 300. The AOD was mated with a 302-inch 4.95 liter from 1986 through 1990. In 1990, all engines received the E40D for 1991 models. A V8 and automatic transmission were standard in the Eddie Bauer Night and Silver Anniversary trucks. 1992 through 1996, the Bronco, along with the F-Series, was updated for 1992. The new Bronco was redesigned with safety in mind, incorporating front crumple zones, rear shoulder seat belts, a third brake light embedded in the removable top, and for the 1994 driver's side airbag. Because of the taillight and the shoulder belts being safety equipment integrated into the top was no longer legally removable, though it was still physically possible. And all literature in the owner's manuals that had previously explained how to remove the top was removed. Torque's tamper-proof bolts, which required a special tool, were used in place of standard hex bolts to secure the top in place through ratchet set. Were still recommended for top removal. Cosmetic exterior and interior changes included a sweeping front end and new dash. Maroon and blue leather seats were first offered in 1991, the 1992 model year, through the end of production. Power windows were once again offered from 1991 and from 1995. The Bronco became the first vehicle to incorporate turn signal lights in the mirrors. All 1994 through 96 Eddie Bauers have an overhead console. Some 1994 through 96 XLTs or Eddie Bauers have lighted sun visors and dimming rear view mirror. From 1995 through 1996, Eddie Bauer models have a vented front bumper. In 1996, XLTs received the vented front bumper as well. 94 through 96, monochrome trucks are XLT sports models offered in black, red, and white. In 1991, Ford offered a 92 Night Edition Bronco with an all-black exterior and gray interior. Another limited edition color offered the mid-1990s XLTs was a two-tone light teal and white exterior with a black-gray interior. Only about 600 of the teal and white two-tones were produced each year. Engine changes. The 302 received a mass airflow sensor system in 1993. The 351 followed with an MAF in 1994 in California. The 351s in the rest of the country received an MAF in 95, along with the OBD2 on both 302 and 351s. Discontinuation. In mid to late 1996, Ford announced the discontinuation of the Bronco. The last Bronco was built and imported from Venezuela. Jeff Trapp's 1970 Ford Bronco during a drive-off ceremony. Its replacement, the Ford Expedition, offered 4 doors as well to compete with General Motors, Chevy, Tahoe, GMC Yukon, and a larger Chevy Suburban. 2017 Ford Bronco. A few decades ago, small 2 or 4-door crossovers were very successful because the gas was cheap and they were usually cheaper to run than sedan counterparts due to the fact that taxes were cheaper. However, things have changed and people have moved on to the bigger crossovers, which offer a better ride quality and usually better crash safety, as well, so only a few of these small crossovers were left on the market. In recent years, many people started buying once again compact crossovers, which started to outsell small family sedans by a rather large margin. While other manufacturers such as GM or even Chrysler do have quite a few offerings out there, Ford's only contender is the Escape, which is basically a European Kuga with a different badge. This is fine for most people out there, but there is a large portion of the market in need of a crossover that not only looks great but behaves like a true off-road machine, which it needs to be. There are only a handful of such cars on the market, but most of these are rather old and not appealing now. Rumors suggested that a 2017 Ford Bronco would be released on the market by the end of last year, 2016, but unfortunately this did not happen. There is some good news about these unconfirmed rumors, though, because not too long ago Ford themselves said that they are not currently working on a Bronco, but such a model might be released in the future. This move would make a lot of sense because it would give Ford a competitor for the highly successful Wrangler and would increase the value in the eyes of their customers. Our best bet would be that the 2017 Ford Bronco is going to be released by the end of 2017, at least as a concept car, in order to show the public what they have built, and it would be a good chance as well to see their feedback. So far, we think that the upcoming Bronco is going to employ the chassis of the Ranger pickup truck, basically allowing Ford to make a small and efficient crossover with an already proved off-road capability. 2017 Ford Bronco specs. Unlike the Wrangler, which is using a V6 as its only engine, the future 2017 Ford Bronco is very likely going to be offered with a small selection of powertrains in order to allow it to meet the target price of around $20,000 for the base model. We actually expect it to feature a small 1.5-liter turbocharged inline 4 petro engine with a 180 horsepower, 200 pound-foot of torque. Enough to make the compact crossover efficient and also quite fun to drive, thanks to the fact that the engine will provide a lot of torque for its size. A larger 2.7-liter V6 or even a 3.5-liter unit could be installed for higher performance versions of the car, while a 3.2-liter inline 5 diesel could be offered in the US version of the 2017 Ford Bronco, basically making it the first diesel-powered Ford crossover in the US. 2017 Ford Bronco design. At this point in time, there isn't any substantial information about how the upcoming Bronco is going to look, but it is safe to assume that the Bronco will definitely borrow at least some of the inspiration of the design of the original Bronco, with the bulky frame, the two big round headlights. Its interior might also be quite stripped in comparison to that of the Wrangler, but this will likely happen in order to show its buyers to customize the interior to their own liking, which might appeal to the younger generation, and it might make the car a true hit among them. Information about the 2017 Ford Bronco was gathered at FordNewModels.com. The history of the Ford Bronco was taken from Wikipedia. Thank you all for watching, and like and subscribe if you could. Bye-bye.